The galaxy had always watched humanity with suspicion, but never with fear. For centuries, alien empires had laughed at them. Humans were described as too slow, too patient, too soft to be a threat. They built their colonies carefully, expanded with caution, and avoided unnecessary wars. To the great galactic powers, humanity was a minor race, destined to remain in the shadows. But everything changed the day the silent warship appeared. It entered the outer rim of the galaxy without a sound, without any signal, without any warning. The ship was enormous, larger than the capital fleets of 3 empires combined. Its dark surface swallowed light, making it look less like a machine and more like a shadow cut into space itself. The strange part was not its size, it was its stillness. The warship did not move. It did not fire. It did not speak. It only waited. Alien sensors captured every detail, but none could understand it. Why would a ship so powerful arrive and then remain completely silent? Weeks passed. Fleets were sent to monitor it. Scouts circled around it. Scientists studied its energy signatures. And yet, nothing came back that explained the warship's true purpose. The silence began to grow heavier than any weapon. At first, the empires mocked it. A broken machine, they said. A bluff, others laughed. But when the first group of scouts disappeared, laughter faded. Their last transmission was nothing but static and a single scream cut short. No debris, no bodies, no wreckage were ever found. They had simply vanished. Whispers began to spread. Some said the ship was empty, only a ghost left from an ancient human experiment. Others believed it was alive, some form of living machine that chose to wait until provoked. The most terrifying idea was that humans were inside watching, listening, and waiting with a patience no alien mind could endure. The waiting was the hardest part. Day by day, alien fleets grew more nervous. Crews refused to patrol near the warship. Traders changed routes, fearing their ships would disappear as well. Civilian broadcasts started to speak of the silent death. Even the bravest generals could not sleep, because every time they closed their eyes, they imagined the warship turning toward their worlds. What was it waiting for? The Galactic Council gathered. Representatives of 10 empires argued in a chamber filled with holograms of the warship. Some demanded an immediate attack to destroy the threat before it grew. Others begged for peace talks, though the ship had not answered a single message. One voice, quiet but cold, said, "It does not answer because it does not need to." Its silence is the answer. Outside the council, panic spread. On distant colonies, children whispered stories about the humans who had brought the ship. Parents warned them not to speak too loudly, in case the warship could hear across the stars. Entire planets lived in fear of something that had not moved an inch. And humanity did nothing to explain. No ambassador, no diplomat, no leader spoke. Not a single human voice was heard. The galaxy realized that patience itself had become a weapon. The silence pressed down like a heavy storm cloud, and still, the warship did not fire. On the 37th day, a brave alien fleet approached closer than any before. They circled the warship, shining bright lights, sending warnings, demanding identification. The warship stayed silent. One captain grew impatient. He ordered a single shot, a warning strike, meant only to test. The shot vanished before reaching the hull. Sensors recorded no shields, no defenses, no reaction at all. The energy blast simply disappeared, as if the space around the warship had swallowed it whole. Crews froze, terrified. Suddenly, every ship's system began to fail. Lights flickered, engines powered down, weapons went cold. In the dark silence, a low vibration spread through the alien ships. It was not sound, not signal, not language, but all who felt it understood. It was a warning. The alien fleet retreated immediately, abandoning their mission. When they returned to report, every one of them described the same feeling. The warship was waiting. Not sleeping, not broken. Waiting. The galaxy entered a state of fear it had never known. Wars paused. Empires stopped fighting each other. Even pirates abandoned their raids. Everyone watched the silent warship. It had not fired, it had not spoken, but it had already changed everything. In dark rooms, alien leaders whispered a question none wanted to say aloud. What happens when humanity finally stops waiting? And somewhere, in the silence of that massive warship, unseen human eyes watched and waited longer still. The warship had not moved, but the galaxy could no longer sit still. From the outer rim to the core worlds, every screen, every broadcast, and every news channel repeated the same image. A black human warship hanging in silence. Its shape was so unnatural that many believed it was not even built but grown. It had no flags, no lights, no markings, only a shadow stretched across the stars. People across alien civilizations began to speak of it like a storm, waiting above their homes. They did not know when or where lightning would strike, but they felt it in their bones. In the Senate of the Koran Empire, senators argued until their throats went dry. One shouted, "It is a broken husk, destroy it, and end the fear." Another answered, "What if it is not broken? What if that silence is a weapon stronger than anything we know?" Their debates echoed across the chamber, but no answer came. The galaxy's greatest scientists were brought together. They sent probes to scan the warship, but probes never returned. The signals cut off the moment they touched its shadow. Engineers stared at the broken transmissions, confused by what? They saw sensors reading infinite mass, timeless energy, and impossible silence. The more they studied, the less they understood. The galaxy's greatest spies were dispatched, cloaked ships designed to slip into enemy territory unseen. None returned. Their last whispers over comms were chilling. "It is looking at us, though it does not move." Then only static. The fear spread faster than any weapon. On distant colonies, taverns filled with frightened voices. Merchants refused to fly near human sectors. Children asked their teachers if the silent ship would come for them next. Some prayed, some cursed, and some began to admire humanity in secret. For the first time, even enemies of humans whispered respect. The empires tried to pretend they were still in control, but their soldiers could not hide their fear. Crews assigned to patrol near the warship deserted. Captains made excuses, refusing to take their ships within sight of it. Even mercenaries, hungry for credits, refused the job. "No treasure is worth a look from that ship," they said. And through it all, humanity said nothing. No message. No diplomat. No warning. The silence pressed against the galaxy like a slow poison, making even the strongest rulers doubt themselves. One empire tried a different tactic. Instead of attacking, they tried to communicate. They broadcast peaceful messages in 1,000 languages. They offered gifts, alliances, and promises. For 7 days, they sent words into the void. For 7 days, the warship remained silent. On the 8th day, their broadcasts suddenly began repeating back to them, word for word, in their own voices, with one difference. Every message was spoken in a whisper. The Empire panicked. How had the warship intercepted their signals? Why did it return their words only as whispers? To the galaxy, the meaning was clear. Humanity could hear everything, but chose not to answer. The fear turned into obsession. Across the stars, artists painted the warship, singers wrote dark songs about it, priests declared it a punishment sent by gods. A single ship, doing nothing, had already become the center of every story. The Galactic Council gathered once more, this time in secrecy. They spoke of possibilities no one dared before. What if the ship was not one of a kind? What if dozens, hundreds of such human ships existed, all waiting in silence across the galaxy? Could the galaxy survive against enemies who fought not with speed or numbers, but with patience itself? No one knew the truth, and that was the most terrifying part. Then something strange happened. On the 52nd day, the warship shifted slightly. Just a tilt, just a small movement in the void. Yet the entire galaxy shook. Across thousands of systems, alarms screamed. Fleets moved into defensive formations. Civilizations prepared for death. But the warship did not fire. It did not speak. It only moved back into stillness, as if adjusting its gaze. The galaxy realized something horrifying. That single, tiny movement had made them panic more than the largest wars in history. They were no longer rulers of the stars. They were prisoners of their own fear, trapped by a shadow that never struck. In quiet rooms, alien leaders admitted the truth. The humans had done nothing, yet they had already won. But still, one question grew louder and louder in every mind, haunting every dream, burning through every night. If humanity's patience was this deadly, what would happen the day they finally lost it? And somewhere, behind the black hull of the warship, unseen human eyes kept watching, waiting, learning. The galaxy could not wait anymore. For nearly 2 months, the human warship had remained in silence, and in that silence, entire empires had grown restless. Armies stood frozen. Trade collapsed. People refused to leave their homes. All because of one ship that had not even spoken a word. But fear has a limit, and one empire decided to break it. The Kraylan Dominion was proud, aggressive, and reckless. Their fleets were vast, their weapons legendary. For years they had mocked humanity, calling them farmers of stars instead of warriors. Their emperor believed the warship was nothing but a hollow bluff. If they had power, he declared, they would have used it by now. And so, the Kraylan fleet prepared its assault. The galaxy watched as 200 warships moved into position, surrounding the silent human vessel like wolves around a motionless prey. Their weapons glowed with energy. Their engines thundered with fire. Commanders shouted with confidence. To them, this was history. They would be remembered as the ones who destroyed humanity's false terror. The first shots were fired. Blazing beams of plasma streaked across the void. Missiles tore through the darkness, and ion storms lit the space around the human warship. Every weapon in the Kraylan arsenal was unleashed in a single devastating wave. For 3 minutes, the stars themselves seemed to burn, and then silence. When the light faded, the human warship was still there, unmoved, untouched, not a scratch on its black surface. The Kraylan commanders froze in disbelief. Sensors confirmed the impossible. Not a single weapon had made contact. Everything had disappeared before touching the ship's hull, just like the first warning shot weeks ago. The Kraylan soldiers began to whisper among themselves, voices shaking. "It is absorbing the attacks," one said. "No, it is ignoring them," another replied. Panic crept into their voices. Then it happened. The warship moved, not fast, not violent, just a slow, deliberate turn, as if it was finally giving the galaxy its attention. Across the Kraylan fleet, alarms screamed, weapons locked, engines roared. But no one fired again. And in the silence that followed, the warship made its first strike. It did not launch missiles. It did not fire beams of light. Instead, a pulse of absolute stillness spread from its hull, a wave invisible to the eye but felt by every living creature. The moment it touched the Kraylan ships, everything stopped. Engines shut down. Shields collapsed. Weapons fell silent. Thousands of soldiers froze in their seats, unable to breathe, unable to move, trapped in a paralysis of fear. The pulse had not destroyed their ships, it had destroyed their will. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Kraylan fleet drifted like toys in the dark, powerless. Then, one by one, their ships vanished. There was no explosion, no fire, no wreckage. They were simply erased from existence like dust swept off a table. Hundreds of warships gone in a heartbeat. Only silence remained. The galaxy trembled. Billions had been watching the battle through hidden transmissions, and what they saw was worse than death. They had expected destruction, but not this quiet, effortless erasure. The human warship had shown them its patience was not weakness. It was strength beyond measure. On distant worlds, citizens screamed and prayed. Soldiers on every frontier lowered their weapons, unable to imagine facing such power. Leaders of empires sat frozen in their thrones, their pride crumbling to dust. And then, for the first time, the warship spoke. Across every frequency, in every language, a voice was heard. It was deep, calm, and cold. "We waited because you needed to see your fear before you saw our strength." The words were few, but they were enough to shatter the galaxy's confidence. It was not anger. It was not a threat. It was worse. It was patience turned into power, patience that had broken the will of an entire fleet before ever lifting a weapon. When the transmission ended, Silence returned. The warship went still again, as though nothing had happened. But the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity had finally acted, and their first strike had been deadlier than any war in history. The Kraylan dominion was gone, and every empire whispered the same thought in terror. If this was only the beginning, what would humanity do next? Somewhere in the dark corners of the stars, new plans were made. Some sought surrender, others sought escape. A few foolish ones still sought war, but all agreed on one truth. Patience was no longer just a human trait. It was the deadliest weapon the galaxy had ever seen, and the silent warship was only the first lesson. The galaxy was no longer the same after the Kraylan dominion vanished. 200 ships had disappeared in silence, and an empire known for its arrogance was erased in less than a heartbeat. The human warship had spoken only once, and its words were carved into the minds of billions. We waited because you needed to see your fear before you saw our strength. But what did those words mean? Every empire, every council, every leader tried to understand. Was this a declaration of war? Was it a warning? Or was it something else entirely? The confusion spread as fast as the fear. On the wealthy worlds of the Solari Union, scholars debated day and night. Patience is not a weapon, one said. It is a lesson, another argued. But no matter what answers they gave, none felt complete. On mining colonies across the rim, workers gathered around old holoscreens, whispering among themselves. If humans can erase fleets, why do they not conquer the stars already? Someone asked. Silence followed because no one had an answer, and in secret chambers, alien rulers confessed their deepest fear. The humans were not here to conquer, they were here to teach. The warship remained still, yet its presence shaped the galaxy like gravity. The more silent it stayed, the more loudly its meaning echoed. Fleets were recalled from borders. Wars between alien powers ended overnight. Armies that once killed for territory now trembled at shadows. The galaxy had never known such unity, and yet it was unity born of terror. Then, on the 70th day, something unexpected happened. The warship broadcast again. But this time there was no voice. Instead, images poured across every channel. At first they were strange, almost meaningless. Fields of ruined battlefields, bones of soldiers, burned worlds left empty. At first aliens thought they were threats, but then they understood. These were not alien worlds. They were human ones. The galaxy stared in silence as history they had never seen unfolded before them. Wars that humans had fought long ago. Battles where humans had stood against impossible odds. Images of humanity's past, their destroyed cities, their fallen children, their endless scars, flashed across the stars. And then came the most shocking image of all. A human standing alone against an army, waiting with nothing but silence until the army destroyed itself. The galaxy realized the truth. Humanity's patience was not born from weakness. It was born from suffering. They had waited before in their own history, because they had learned that sometimes waiting destroyed enemies faster than weapons. The images ended. Silence followed. In council chambers across the galaxy, leaders sat pale and speechless. For the first time, they saw humanity not as farmers, not as colonists, not as weak, but as survivors who had carried patience like a sword for generations. A rumor spread faster than light. Some said the human warship was not just a ship, it was a monument, carrying memories of every human war, every human loss, every human victory. It was not waiting to strike again. It was waiting for the galaxy to understand. Still, not everyone accepted the lesson. In the Drex Confederacy, generals laughed bitterly. Patience? They sneered. They hide their power behind stories and shadows. But even their voices shook when they spoke. On the 75th day, the warship moved again. This time, it sent a final message. Not words, not images, but a single heartbeat. Across every ship, every world, every station, aliens felt it. A deep, steady thump that echoed inside their bodies. It was not mechanical. It was human. The message was clear. We are alive. We are watching, and we will wait. That heartbeat shook the galaxy more than the destruction of the Kraylan fleet. It was not a threat. It was a promise. Humans were not rushing to war, not desperate to conquer. They had time. They had patience. And they could outlast every empire in existence. For the first time in galactic history, alien powers felt small, not because of weapons, but because of endurance. Humanity did not need to strike every day. Humanity could wait centuries if it had to, until the galaxy itself crumbled from fear. The revelation was undeniable. Humans had turned patience into the most terrifying force in the universe. And so, whispers spread like wildfire. Some civilizations spoke of surrender before a single battle. Others began secret worship of humanity, calling them the Watchers. A few stubborn empires sharpened their blades, but even they prepared with trembling hands, because now the galaxy understood. The silence of the warship was not an absence. It was a presence, and its patience was not weakness. It was victory waiting to happen. By now, the galaxy no longer doubted humanity's strength. They had seen fleets vanish. They had heard the warship's voice. They had felt the echo of a human heartbeat inside their very bones. Yet the silence that followed was worse than the action. The warship waited again, and in that waiting, every empire understood one terrible truth. Humanity could destroy them all. But it chose not to. That choice was the real weapon. Across the stars, empires bent beneath the weight of fear. The Drex Confederacy shut down its borders, terrified that the warship was already watching them. The Solari Union sent emissaries to empty space, begging for peace even though no reply ever came. Even the proudest rulers now whispered in private that humanity was not an enemy. It was a shadow too vast to fight. But what the galaxy did not see was this. Humanity never moved to conquer. The warship stayed where it was, drifting in silence as if the battle had already ended before it began. And maybe it had. Because slowly, the galaxy began to change. Fleets that once fought each other disarmed. Worlds that had been at war for centuries signed peace without a word. Pirates, smugglers, and raiders vanished into hiding. Entire civilizations paused their greed and pride, because one black ship floating in silence had taught them more than any war ever could. Patience had become the galaxy's prison. But on the 100th day, the warship sent one final message. Every screen lit up. Every comm channel opened. Every ship, every home, every palace heard the same words spoken in a calm and steady human voice. You believe power is speed. You believe victory is noise. But humanity has learned what you have not. The deadliest strike is the one that waits. The sharpest blade is the one you never see until it is too late. The words hung in silence, but the galaxy leaned closer, afraid and desperate to hear more. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to rule. We are here to remind you patience is survival. We waited once in our own history, through fire and blood until our enemies fell by their own hands. And now, we wait again. The voice grew quieter, almost like a whisper, yet every living being heard it clearly. We will wait until you understand, and if you force our hand, we will not strike twice. And then the transmission ended. No explosions, no fleets launched, no battles began, only silence once again. But the silence was louder than war. Because in that moment every empire knew what not strike twice meant. The Kraylan fleet had been the first and last warning. There would be no second chance. Humanity had given the galaxy a choice. Live in peace under the weight of patience or vanish into silence like the dominion before them. The lesson was clear. And so, the galaxy bowed. Not in public, not in open surrender, but in the quiet ways that mattered most. Armies disbanded, weapons were hidden away. Leaders stopped their conquests. No one dared provoke humanity again. The galaxy became quiet, almost unnatural in its calm. It was not peace built on treaties or promises. It was peace built on fear of patience. In the far corners of space, children grew up hearing stories of the silent warship. Some were told it was a ghost, some that it was a god, some that it was a curse. But all the stories carried the same warning. Do not test those who can wait longer than you can live. And still, the warship remained. It never left, never advanced, never conquered. It simply existed, a black shadow against the stars, reminding all who looked upon it that humanity was patient, and patience was deadly. For centuries, the galaxy would remember the lesson. Empires would rise and fall, but always with caution, always with fear of the silent watchers among the humans. Even in times of peace, every ruler, every soldier, every child would feel it, that quiet question echoing in their minds. What happens the day humanity stops waiting? And no one dared to find out. The warship turned once more so slowly that it looked less like a machine and more like a living presence drifting into the void. Its black hull swallowed starlight as it vanished into darkness. Only a faint echo of that human heartbeat remained, steady and unbroken. Thump, thump, thump. The galaxy froze, listening, knowing it was not just a sound. It was a reminder. Patience was not silence. Patience was not weakness. Patience was death waiting in the shadows, and humanity had mastered it.